Okay, I just turned on the recorder and welcome everyone for coming to this meeting. I'm David Corbin. I'm on the executive committee of the Missouri Valley Group. For those who may not know, the Missouri Valley Group basically covers the territory quite similar to OPPD's territory. The state chapter, of course, covers the whole state, and then we have one called Blue Stem, which is more in the LES area. But obviously, we have people in the other areas as well. So everyone is muted when they come in. What I'm going to do is introduce the speakers now, and then if they want to say a little bit more about what they do, then they can do that. Then I'll share the screen with their PowerPoint presentation. Oftentimes the question is asked, will we be able to see this? And of course I'm recording it. So the answer is yes, you will be able to. We can share that. But if something goes wrong, we should be able to share the PowerPoint as well. And then if you have questions, if you can put them in the chat, I would appreciate it. And then depending on how much time we have at the end, we might be able to have you unmute and then ask questions there. So the people we have from OPPD that are with us tonight, and I want to thank them for agreeing to do this, are Ryan Stigge, Colton Kennedy, Britney Gibilisco, and Paul Fortney. Ryan and Colton are with the Power with Purpose energy portfolio, and Britney and Paul are with the Greener Together and talking about electric vehicles and support systems for that. So tell me who's going first, and then I'll put the slides up there.
You can start with the energy portfolio and that presentation if you'd like, unless Paul really wants to go.
Okay, so the energy portfolio.
It had like the IRP.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the screen again. So I think I have the other one. Is it the integrated resource plan is first, right?
Yep.
Okay. That's the wrong one.
Oh, that's right.
That's the right one?
Yep. You
Okay.
can put it in present mode.
Okay, you seeing it now?
Yeah, we see the, or at least on my screen, it's still in the like edit mode.
Is it for anybody else?
Yeah, David, if you click on the bottom, you can, on the PowerPoint, you can get it into present mode, slideshow mode instead of the edit mode.
Well, I just did that, but is it there now?
It's still in the same mode. It's PowerPoint at the bottom has a slideshow option.
Also at the very top center of your screen, I think, where it says slideshow.
Really loves my one.
To the right, up, left. So where the words are transitions, animation, slideshow, review, view. Click on slideshow.
Except I'm not seeing it. So.
Oh.
Oh, right across the top.
It does not say that. Why don't you start and I'll try to get it up there, and at least you can see it in a smaller screen, right?
Well, David, isn't there also an option you can make him a co-host and then he can do it? Or I guess not, because it's your screen that's being shared.
going to stop one more time and I'm going to start one more time.
Yeah, I can see if I could share my screen if that works for you.
Yeah, if you just click on participants and make him a co-host, that should work.
There we go.
Oh,
Well, we got greener together up there now.
Oh, well, that's the right mode.
it isn't. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
We could go first if that's easier.
Okay, why don't you do that?
Since
Sorry
it's
about
already
that.
up. All right, I'll kick it off then. My name's Britney Gibilisco. I'm a product specialist, and I've been working on this Greener Together program launch, which actually launches in April, and that's already next week. So super excited to bring this to you guys and talk through it. So what is Greener Together? Greener Together is a program where customers can contribute on a monthly basis. Their contributions go towards promoting and executing environmental projects that are submitted through community organizations within our community. So the type of projects that we're looking for and that will be submitted are projects that support renewable energy, promote environmental sustainability, and support community betterment and education. If you go to the next slide, whoever's controlling this. There we go. So the different types of projects examples that fall under those categories could be, these are just a few, but they could be anything from an HOA solar project to energy efficiency projects to a new bike path or tree planting. Yeah, the possibilities are endless as long as they're within those categories. And go to the next slide. So how do customers contribute? Customers can contribute at a flexible pricing model starting as low as $4.50. We did a flexible pricing model. You want to go back one more? Just so people could have the choice and the flexibility. So depending on the price that they choose to contribute, they will be bucketed into one of these tier levels. So we have 3 different tiers. We have silver, gold, and emerald, as you can see right there. All customers will get, the basic benefits of the program and also the most important benefits, which are program updates. They get access to a Greener Together program dashboard, and then they also get a vote on projects as well. We got a little bit of sound coming through. Great. So depending on what they decide to contribute on, like I said, they'll be bucketed into one of these tiers. So let's say they decide on $5, then they're going to be in the silver category. They want to do $7.50, they'll be in the gold, and anything above $10 is in that emerald category. Those who are in the gold and emerald will be able to actually select the winning projects. And then those who are in the emerald will get some fun Greener Together merchandise as well. I go to the next slide. So what do you get as a Greener Together customer? You get to make an impact on your community. So you get to support these projects that make an immediate impact in your community. You get to share your voice, so you get to have a say. I was talking about the different voting capabilities on the slide before. So you get to vote on the projects that are selected to be funded by your contributions, and then you get to gain a community. So through that project dashboard, you'll all be connected. All the Greener Together customers will be connected and be able to collaborate together. Go to the next slide, please. So what does the application process look like? How does this work when we actually get applications coming in? So there's 3 simple steps. The first step is that community organizations will submit projects. They could submit right on our website. There's a form, and it'll be nice and easy for people to go through. The next step is the scoring step, and we're creating a project review committee, which will be Greener Together customers and also OPPD employees. In that committee, they will score each of these projects using a scoring matrix that we have created. And then they will pass their recommendations on to an advisory board, which is made up of OPPD employees. And the advisory board, the purpose is just for them to kind of take a second look at the projects that are recommended, to go through that scoring matrix again, just to make sure that the projects that are moving forward to the voting round have all been scored fairly and equally. And then the final step in this process is that this is when it goes to the customers to be able to vote on. So as I said earlier, all participants, no matter what tier that you're contributing at, get a vote on those initial projects. They get to rank them, and the top ranked projects, they go to vote to the voting round that the Emerald and Gold participants get to participate in. And it could be, choosing one project, it could be 2. It kind of depends on the amount of funds that we have and the type of projects that have made it to that final round. You can go ahead. So what does a project scoring matrix look like? So there's basically 3 main categories that we're looking at when we're scoring each project. We're looking at environmental impact, we're looking at community benefits, and also project viability. I'm gonna move to the next slide. And then this is the fun part, which I think it's fun, the marketing part. You can see a couple of examples of what our marketing will look like. On the right, there is a screenshot of the website that we're working on. And then on the left is a brochure that we'll be using as well. So we'll be doing social, print, digital, and media marketing, and then marketing through our contact center. We're also planning some in-person events, and then actually getting out and doing some community outreach and reaching out to those local organizations to get those projects submitted. If you want to move forward. And something that we really wanted to do at the beginning of this project at the launch is have a launch project to really show customers, what are the type of projects that we're wanting to do? What's Greener Together all about? So OPPD is sponsoring this launch project, and we're working with Bellevue University to do a fruit orchard and then also a grass and flower pollinator plot at our arboretum, which we're really excited about. Move forward. So when is this all happening? As I said, April, which I can't believe it's already next week. So throughout April, we'll be opening up enrollment. We'll be doing external marketing, and then we're doing the Earth Day event, which is on the 23rd, and also doing community outreach starting in April and then throughout the summer and fall and probably forever. I'm gonna kick it over to Paul for the EV updates.
Before that happens, I just want to let people know, maybe you could tell them that the old green program that how you're soliciting them to be involved in the new one. I should point out that survey that the Sierra Club did helped to create some of the categories, so we appreciate that, and it's a lot different. I know that some of the questions, I don't know if it was answered, was in the chat or the criteria, and maybe there'll be more to know more about how you meet the criteria for those different categories. Is that going to be in the brochure or?
So the categories for the scoring matrix, that will actually be on that dashboard that I talked about, that Greener Together customers have access to. And if you have any recommendations, we do have a Greener Together email that you can always reach out to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's go ahead with the EV.
All right, so let me introduce myself. I'm Paul Fortney. I am the manager of product management at Oppd. So I have a team of product specialists, which Brittany is one of, that help us create new products, manage our programs, and then manage offerings like Greener Together throughout the life cycle of those products that we offer. Continue to look for ways to improve those offerings. How do we make sure that they're working for Oppd? How do we make sure that they're working for our customers? How do we drive more participation, et cetera? That's kind of what our group is all about. Greener Together being one, like I said, being one of those new products that we're just bringing to the market. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the activities that we've done recently on electric vehicles and just kind of give you an update on kind of where we're at and maybe some of the things that we're working on or looking at. Go to the next slide. So recently we had a booth at the Midlands Auto Show. It was entitled It's Go Time. We had a number of electric vehicles that were in our booth that different manufacturers had that people could take a look at. We had some education in that booth, everything from some of the things that are available on oppd.com in regards to EVs, where you can do a comparison between purchasing a fossil fuel powered car versus an EV, and you can put in specific models there and you can do the compare in terms of cost of ownership, cost to purchase, et cetera. We had some information in the booth about chargers, public chargers available throughout the Oppd service territory. We also had some information there and some actual chargers to show the difference between level 1, 2, 3, 4 chargers. And we talked about to customers just kind of about ownership of an EV and how that differs from ownership of a fossil fuel vehicle, how chargers work, how long they take to power your car up, all those kind of things. It was a good event. We're actually doing a ride and drive event in June. More information to come on that. But that'll be an event where not only are we doing education with customers, but we'll also have a number of electric vehicles that'll be available to take test drives on. It's not at a dealership where maybe you have the pressure to purchase a vehicle, but you'll be able to get into an EV and actually experience what it's like to drive an EV as compared to the fossil fuel vehicle. So we're looking forward to that and more information to come on that event, which again is going to happen in June. Next slide. So we introduced electrical vehicle rebates in 2018, and that came out of one of the strategic initiatives that we had, and we've offered those since. We've continued to see an uptake in electric vehicles throughout the district. Some of the information on this slide, which has quite a bit on there, one just kind of shows the dollars and the types of rebates that we've had in our program. We've tried to pilot a number of different rebates, trying to see what is interesting to customers, what kind of works, everything from just charger rebates to car and charger rebates. We've offered some fleet rebates for businesses who are looking to replace fossil fuel vehicles in their fleet. We're working on an off-peak charger pilot right now, where for people who have gotten rebates from us, one of the main reasons that we have done rebates for EVs to date is not necessarily to help people get into an EV, but really we're paying those monies, and to date they've all been from grants, really so that we can collect the charger data and understand what that impact is on the grid in terms of adding electric vehicles to that. What are people's charging patterns look like? How does that affect our peak? What's that look like in terms of loads and circuit loads from a transmission distribution perspective? So again, we've tried a number of different things in regards to those rebates. The chart on the upper left shows you kind of what the cumulative charging looks like for those people that have gotten rebates from Oppd, and what it looks like. And as you can see, most people come home at 5 o'clock or whenever they arrive home from work, and they plug their car in right away. So there is some overlap with our peak daily usage. When you look at the number of hours that they have that car plugged in, which is 13 hours and 24 minutes on average. But then you look over and you see that the average charging time is 2 hours and 26 minutes. There's certainly a large window there. And so I talked about an off-peak charging pilot, which we're going to launch next month. So for those people who have an electric vehicle and we have access to their charger information, for those who are charging during that peak window, we're going to offer a small incentive. I think it's $5 a month to see if we can get them to program that charger and move their load from the peak hours to off-peak hours. So again, as we move forward and more and more people have electric vehicles and they continue to add that load onto the system, we're looking for ways to make sure that we can provide everybody the power needed, but at the same time, make sure that we're doing it in an efficient way possible. Again, trying to avoid maybe some of those peak hours.
And Paul, just to make sure everybody knows, you might want to explain what peak is.
Yeah, so peak is the time of day when everybody's using electricity, right? So as we go throughout the day, I think our peak starts to pick up a little bit afternoon around 1 o'clock, continues into the early evening hours. So as people go to work and start working, as they come home, start using appliances, turn on their air conditioner maybe a little higher because they're at home, cook dinner, do laundry, et cetera, all those things, the more things they plug in, that's when we see on a daily basis the more usage, the higher usage, and so that is our peak. So again, then as the evening goes along, people go to bed, they start using less electricity, and so we see it kind of rise throughout the day and then kind of tail off, and that you kind of see in this graph, which is specific to electric vehicle charging patterns, it still follows kind of our peak load. It starts a little later than what our peak is during the day, but it does overlap in those peak hours of 5, 6, 7 o'clock when we're still seeing high usage from our customers across the board. This slide just gives you a snapshot of some of the growth we've seen in the district for electric vehicles, as well as the US and Nebraska. So from 18 to 21, we've seen electric vehicles double in the United States. In Nebraska, we've seen good growth. Again, when you're starting with smaller numbers, big growth percentages are easier to get than when you have larger numbers. But we are seeing growth in the state of Nebraska. And we're also seeing growth within the OPPD service territory as well. The graph on the bottom of the slide just kind of shows that cumulative charging due to electric vehicles. So you can see over time, again, as we get more and more electric vehicles, obviously the charging electricity that those vehicles require to be charged and to be used continues to increase. And then on the far right is a zip code map that just kind of shows the concentration of electric vehicles in the OPPD service territory. Those are mainly kind of centered within, the metro area, but we are starting to see growth and placement of EVs outside of the metro as well. Next slide. And I think this is my final slide. So not only have we been doing our rebates for chargers for the purchase of vehicles, as well as wiring and some other things that we've tried since 2018. We've also made a concerted effort to try and grow the public charging networks out within the OPPD service territory. And this, I think we've again done this through grant funding. Since 2018, we've had $600,000 of grant funding that has enabled us to help companies or public entities, et cetera, place public charging facilities within the district. The last set that we've done here, we recently launched 5 additional chargers, and you can kind of see the locations of these. 4 of the 5, or excuse me, 3 of the 5 were at Casey's outside of the metro area. We also added level 2 chargers at Cabela's. So again, we continue to look for ways to help make sure that we have public charging available throughout the district. And actually, since 18, we've helped put 13 of those out there. So these are the last 5, but we've done 13 overall. I think that is my last slide.
One of the chats was talking about how successful Lincoln's ride and drive was last summer, and he said that a lot of people had never been in an electric vehicle, let alone drive one. So it's nice that you're going to have some ride and drives coming up. The other thing in the chat box, I think, will be covered more in the next PowerPoint presentation. So if it isn't, then I'll ask that then. I don't see any other in the chat for this one, so thank you for that. And we're ready to go to the other PowerPoint, is that right? And hope that it works. Same one. Why does it keep coming up? Same one keeps coming up no matter what I click. Didn't we have it up before?
If you'd like, I don't know if I have share screen privileges, but I can sure try and see if it'll let me put it up there.
Yeah, Albert or David, can you make Ryan a co-host?
How's that? Are you seeing it?
I can see it, Ryan. You're good.
And it just switched to the other one, right?
Yep, it was up there for a second.
Yeah, I saw it.
I think you have to stop sharing before it'll let me share. That's what it's telling me.
Okay, how about now?
All right, how's that?
It's coming. There we go.
All right, perfect. So I'm just looking at the time. There's quite a bit of content here, so I'm going to try and stay really high level. So if I skip over something that's on the slides, feel free to ask about it, but I don't want to spend too much time. And most of this information was already shared through our workshops for decarbonization and through the IRP. Also with Colton not here, there may be a few details I'm not as in the know on as he is, so I'll do my best. But so we're going to start with a little bit about the IRP, because the energy portfolio modeling informed the IRP, and the IRP also entails our power with purpose assets. And so it seems like they all kind of fit together nicely. And so that's kind of where we sat here. And so if you were part of those workshops, thank you for attending. And if not, they are all available for viewing, and the information is on oppdcommunityconnect.com. But we submitted our IRP, Integrated Resource Plan, on February 28th, and that outlines the next 5 years of our resource plan and and that's really covered by Power with Purpose. And then the energy portfolio modeling helped inform that long term. So 5 years and beyond, up to 2050, really informed the direction we're going into the future. And so that near term need is really satisfied by Power with Purpose. So those are the up to 600 megawatts of solar, and our 2 Turtle Creek station and the Standing Bear Lake station, as well as the conversions of North Omaha units 4 and 5 from coal to gas, and the retirement of 1, 2, and 3 at North Omaha. So that helps enhance reliability and resiliency. That's really foundational in everything that we do. It reduces carbon emissions. An interesting thing there. So from 2013 until 2021, OPPD actually reduced our carbon emissions by 4.6 million metric tons. So we went from, I'm forgetting the exact numbers, but it was a little over 14 million metric tons to I think 9.7 million metric tons last year. That's the equivalent of all of the fossil powered vehicles in our service territory. That's the emissions they would emit in a year. So that's a pretty big, significant change, and we're continuing to push forward, as you see with the Power with Purpose assets and our decarbonization pathways. So we'll hit on the IRP, a little bit about the pathways, the approach and process, and the key findings, and then kind of the plan that'll cover the next 5 years, and then kind of the pathways into the future. So for those of you that don't know what the Integrated Resource Plan is, it's a planning process for new energy resources that evaluates the full range of alternatives, including new generating capacity, power purchases, energy conservation, cogeneration. And it's really to provide adequate and reliable service to electric consumers. So as we put together the IRP, our mission has to help inform how we do that, right? And so our mission is to provide affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy services. And those are really driven by 3 key strategic directives. So we have a strategic directive on rates, we have one on reliability, and we have one on environmental stewardship. A little more background, I won't spend much time here, but we file this every 5 years with the Western Area Power Administration, and it has to comply with NERC and SPP reliability requirements. And as I mentioned in the slide before, it's guided by our mission and our strategic directives. And stakeholder engagement, I hope you guys all had the opportunity to take part in that. I mentioned it earlier, we've had a series of workshops, both for decarbonization, and we had a engagement session for the IRP. And we, a lot of this really came from, we heard loud and clear that we could do better after the last IRP. And so we put a lot of work and effort in that. I see Lori Zagurski is on here, and a bit, shout out to her and her team. There's a lot of effort that went into this planning, time, and making sure that it all went off without a hitch. And so big thanks to that group and to all those that helped put the material together and present and answer questions and take the feedback and really incorporate that back into our process. All right, so I'm going to hit on the energy portfolio project, as this was really part of our IRP. It helped inform the IRP, so this is really informing that long-term look into our future. And so the energy portfolio project studied actionable pathways to eliminate or significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions from our energy portfolio while balancing reliability, resiliency, and affordability. So it's really this broad, far-looking study, and we evaluated a universe of technologies. If you attended, I think it was workshop 3, I think we detailed how we went through the technologies. We started with over 150 of them and narrowed it down, but really giving everything a shot and looking at it and understanding what we can incorporate into the modeling. I mean, it went over multiple timelines for an extended horizon. So we had a couple pathways and how we could get to there, either accelerated, or we had a 2035 scenario that we modeled. Is really intended to directionally inform our stakeholders and decision makers. And there's more work to come after this, but it's really important to understand that this study was not a recommendation for a singular future energy portfolio or a decision to add or retire specific assets. It really lays the foundation for us to make decisions as we go forward, and we'll continue to evaluate what that looks like. I think we all see how quickly technology can change and things can advance, and so we want to make sure we're flexible in how we're approaching our future. And so how did we go about this study, right? So we worked with a third party, Energy and Environmental Economics, E3, and they were great partners. And if you've watched any of the workshops, very informative. They're great to work with, interact with, and really experts in their field. And so we're appreciative of all the help and the expertise they brought, and really the close working relationship that we developed with them over that time. And so the study looked at key components of traditional resource planning, which also is part of how you do an integrated resource plan. So there's load forecasting, technology forecasts, scenario analysis, and optimization based on economics. But I think one of the really neat things that we did, we started off with a multi-sector modeling. We looked economy-wide at what decarbonization looks like and what is the impact to OPPD and what is the impact to the economy, so that we could understand what our load was, where we would have opportunities to help our customers and our communities. And then we moved into really a deep study on reliability and resiliency. So reliability and resiliency are absolute requirements and the foundation for all of our pathways. So every scenario that we looked at, it had to meet or exceed our reliability standards in order to move forward in the analysis. And so scenarios and pathways that came out of that then went into the portfolio optimization. So that's really your least cost economic optimization. And then we had a risk analysis afterwards to look across those pathways to make sure they were meeting things. We had risks such as, I think I'm trying to remember what they were, but there was a lot on weather-related events. So heat, cold, localized damage such as tornadoes and those types of things. And I mentioned reliability and resiliency. Those were requirements, and they're the foundation. I think it bears repeating. You see it on here. I said it on the last slide as well. But we're required to follow both regional and federal reliability requirements. And our modeling did that, and we used objective and quantitative approaches to ensuring that reliability. So I won't get into the details there. I'm going to try and keep moving so we have time for questions at the end, but feel free to ask questions as we wrap up. And I talked about the economic optimization, right? And so a key question is always, well, what is the cost impact of these changes in the pathways, right? And so they varied by the scenario, and you can see that in the chart off to the side. But what it came out to was looking across it from now until 2050, the impact based just on the generation and transmission would be somewhere between 0.3 and 0.6% relative to the reference case. And just for comparison's sake, the Federal Reserve has a target rate of 2% inflation annually. Now, I don't know if that's changing. I think we all feel inflation right now, so that may adjust a little bit. But just for reference, and it's really, a lot of that cost is really driven by the timing and the magnitude. Those costs aren't linear, right? So they depend on how quickly we decarbonize. They depend on regulations, and they also really depend on if there's technology breakthroughs, or if, you know, we all feel the struggles of supply chain right now. So those could impact it. But there's also, I touched on this. This is really only looking at generation and transmission. So there's other factors that impact our rates. So this is only a piece of that puzzle. All right, so what were the key findings that we came out of this study with? Well, number one is we can achieve net zero while balancing affordability and reliability. And we touched on the rate impacts. But I think number one finding, we want to make sure everyone knows, hey, we did this study. I think, you know, we expected to come out of this with that finding, but it's good to reaffirm our suspicions. Another important one here is all scenarios cease coal generation and reduce use of fossil fuels. So as we move into the future, every scenario increasingly displaced fossil generation with low carbon resources. And all of the scenarios ultimately repowered or retired our coal generation by 2045. And so they're, depending on the scenario, there were different time frames that fell in, but they all happened by 2045. And it will require a mix of renewable energy storage, and community-wide energy efficiency in order to achieve our goals. And I think that's really important because, you know, we aren't in this alone, right? OPPD isn't in this alone. We need the help of our customers and our communities to help us on this pathway. And I think that kind of is reflected in the way we did the multi-sector modeling as well. So another really important thing, so I talked about reliability, right? And that's really foundational to everything that we do. We have to maintain reliability. And firm generation through every scenario that we looked at was needed to maintain resource adequacy. Wind, solar, energy storage, demand side resources, they can help us, but they have limitations, right? So think about what happened in Texas last year. Extreme weather events are something we have to plan for and be prepared for, and firm resources are required, especially as we looked at the multi-sector modeling. You know, into the future, as things change, it's likely that our peak load is going to shift from summer to winter or times of low renewables. And so those are things we have to be prepared for. Another interesting thing, so the resources were consistent across a variety of the pathways. So there was really this core set of common resources that we saw across all of them. And the thing that really drove when and how much you built was the speed of decarbonization, so the pace of decarbonization. We also looked at a scenario that was, you know, we looked at absolute zero. So I mentioned that our goal is net zero by 2050. We looked at what absolute zero would be, and what we found, and I think this was on a couple slides ago, the cost, you could see how that scaled out to the right. So this was the far right piece. And it's the most costly of the scenarios, and it's really, really dependent on future technology development. It would require impractically high levels of new resources at significantly higher cost. Another finding, so accelerating decarbonization reduces our cumulative emissions. at relatively low incremental cost, but there are implementation and integration challenges. So the faster you want to go, there are challenges with that, and we touch on some of those, I think, later in here. But some of those are, just being able to site and source it. Grid interconnection is something that we're working through right now, and that's not just in our area. That's a nationwide issue that all utilities are facing right now, where there's supply chain issues. And then the last thing, I mentioned reliability and resiliency quite a few times. It is part of our mission. It's foundational to all of this. The changing resource mix, it poses new challenges that we really need to, as we're making these, we really need to keep evaluating and understanding and watching our surroundings to make sure that we're adequately prepared and planning for any grid resiliency events that may occur. All right, so we talked a lot about energy portfolio. That's long-term. I think there's one more slide towards the end about that, but power with purpose, right? So I mentioned the 5-year plan in our IRP. Power with purpose meets that. And I'm actually going to, in the interest of time, skip over this slide and move to the next one. So this really details power with purpose in the near-term 5-year plan. So Standing Bear Lake, Turtle Creek Station, I mentioned those earlier. We have Platteview Solar. That one's been announced. We're still working on the additional power with purpose solar. There's North Omaha 1, 2, and 3 being retired. North Omaha 4 and 5 converting from coal to natural gas. Those are all really important that I touched on earlier. As we move into the future, those changes really enable us to keep reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. And that's, this is quite a bit of change to our energy portfolio. So, if you think about 600 megawatts of new balancing stations plus 600 megawatts of solar, and roughly we'll call it 600 for ease of math here, 600 megawatts of change at North Omaha. That's 1,800 megawatts of change for a utility with a peak load around 2,500 megawatts. So this is changes to our energy portfolio that are happening in front of us now. And we also look at demand side resource actions. So you see in front of you here the current roadmap for potential new demand side resources. And I think it's important to know that what's on here are things that are mature. They're technically achievable. They've been proven at scale, and we have the core capabilities to pursue. But to realize that the things that are on here, they still need to go through our normal product development framework and pass rigor and move from this phase to the next to be executed. Not all of them may make it. There may be new things that come in. It'll change as we go forward, or it could change, but it's continuously looked at. So this is something we do every year. And I'm sure Paul's probably cringing at my poor explanation of this as he's sitting there, but we'll keep moving about 10 minutes. I want to make sure we have time for questions. So only a couple slides left. So that's the near term, power with purpose and some demand side. That covers 5 years. Long term, so into the future, just what did we see coming out of our energy portfolio study? Well, I talked about this core set of resources that we see across all the pathways. That core set was wind, solar, and energy storage, right? And so we identified least regrets resource additions, and what that looked like was 1,100 megawatts of solar, 500 of wind, 150 of energy storage by 2030. And you can see that gets even larger by 2050. We also need a continued investment in energy efficiency and load flexibility. So that was a big part of the multi-sector modeling. It was a big part of how we analyzed our resource needs moving into the future. I talked about the cessation of coal generation and reduced use of fossil fuels, but with the understanding that to maintain resource adequacy, we need those firm resources to still be on the system to provide the energy during events where renewables may be down and it's extended, where you can't meet that with your energy storage, and you can't meet it with demand side management alone. And so they definitely still hold a very important place to keep the lights on moving forward. And I also talked about, this kind of lays the foundation and shows the directional what, but there's still more work to be done. We need to really understand how do we move forward with what we know now in order to keep making those decisions and keep moving towards our decarbonization goal and keep improving our products and our services and our commitment to our customers. I think about 8 minutes. I want to make sure we have time for questions, so I'm gonna wrap it up there, if that's all right, and let you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And if you have a question, go to the reactions and click on that and click raise your hand so that we know you're. I want to take this time also to acknowledge that the OPPD director from my subdistrict, Eric Williams, is on. So thanks for being on. If you want to raise your hand and be recognized and unmute yourself, please do so now.
I see, I see the one question here. Question: will Nebraska City Power Station be retired when coal ceases or converted to a different type of generation? So when we modeled this, in every scenario, the modeling chose to repower those stations to natural gas. They would become kind of a peaking unit then, similar to how we utilize the North Omaha 1, 2, and 3 units today.
I want to point out also and thank a lot of the people that are on this Zoom meeting have been involved in your many meetings about power with purpose. And as I said, as you go to the Greener Together, there's many of our memberships. We have about 1,500 Sierra Club members in the OPPD area or somewhere around that. And many of them might be interested in participating in the Greener Together. So as you develop social media and brochures and things like that, we'll be glad to share it. I should also just point out that if people don't know, there's been some attacks in the legislature on public power, and so we're waiting to see what happens with those bills as well.
David, do you want to read
yes.
some of the questions in the chat? There's a number of questions in the chat. Do you want me to read some of those?
Well, I think most of them have been answered in my view. So if the people didn't think it was answered in the last one, then they can weigh in. The John Crabtree one, I can read. When power with purpose gas generation, Turtle Creek and Standing Bear stations were first announced, the operational use was forecasted at 10% to 15% annual capacity factor. Is that still the operational intention, or has that increased?
I don't believe our intention has changed any for those forecasts. They still remain as what as the balancing plant, which falls in that 10 to 15% capacity factor.
Okay, the other questions, they came on before they were addressed in the presentation. So if you didn't get the answer in the presentation, it was my view that they were answered in the presentation, but if it wasn't your view that they were, then let us know. Seeing no questions, I want to thank all of you from OPPD for taking the time to talk to us today. Even though, usually what happens, I see Mark Welch does have his hand up. Go ahead, Mark. Unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I know electric vehicles are very important to OPPD's future, but so should be converting every home to use electric furnaces, electric water heaters, stoves, clothes dryers. But I don't see any rebates from OPPD for those products, yet I do see them from MUD. And I think OPPD really ought to have a goal to shut down MUD's gas pipelines by totally putting them out of business, by replacing all of the gas utilities in people's homes with electric. So where can I find out about OPPD's rebates for things other than vehicles?
Mark, I'll just say that, certainly we have rebates for things like higher efficiency air conditioners and smart thermostats, some of those type of things. I think if you go back and you look at the IRP that and the slide specifically about the demand side products that Ryan spoke to, I think you'll see that the roadmap has many of the things you're talking about: Energy Star appliances, weatherization, many of the things that heat pump water heaters, that type of thing. I think many of those things are things that are currently in the pipeline, are things that we're working to bring to the market.
So are there dates on when those will happen?
I don't have firm dates on many of those. I think, again, I'll refer you back to the slide that Ryan had. We had some tentative dates on many of those. Again, we forecast out, but as priorities change, as technologies change, as our customers' needs change and demands change, we certainly kind of move things up or down in terms of priorities. But I will say that this year, next year, the following year, you'll continue to see us rolling out products to help our customers reduce their carbon footprint, reduce their usage of energy, maybe convert how they, again, going from gas-powered appliance or furnace to an electric appliance or furnace. So again, I think you'll continue to see that rolling out over time, and I would suspect that you will see it this year, next year, the following year, et cetera. That's part of that plan, and again, we have that roadmap out there.
I've only been in one electric vehicle, and that was a Tesla. And it's fast. I've been told that other electric vehicles are pretty fast as well. So is this ride and drive going to be at a racetrack where we can really see how well they work?
I don't think it's going to be at a racetrack, but I would suspect that we probably have a little bit of an area where you start off in the parking lot, or maybe you can see the acceleration that it has. So I agree with you. That's one of the nice features of that electric vehicle is how fast it can accelerate, if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, I'm kind of I'm old enough to be in the Beach Boys, Jan and Dean's, and when they were singing about cars. And now people that I know have electric cars want to be first to stoplight just so they can prove how fast they can get out of the stoplight. Me among them. Any other questions? Again, thanks to everybody who came. Thanks to our presenters. This will be available. I'll put it on our YouTube channel, our Sierra Club YouTube channel, as soon as it buffers and goes through all the things it has to do. Maybe I'll try to edit out my mistakes. And again, thanks to everybody. Help to spread the word if you're interested in being involved in the Greener Together and helping to make that program flourish. If you have an electric car, try to also see if you can get involved with the time of day charging. So thanks, appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you.